And welcome to another wonderful episode of No Butts About It. I'm your host, Josh Butts. I don't know where he's going to appear on your screen, but right now he is below me. That is Chus drinking water in his basement in Pittsburgh. So, welcome, Chus. Thank you for coming back. You were not able to make it to the last episode when me and Stan the Jet fan talked about Aaron Rodgers being a New York Jet. Um, real quick, what do you think about that? You don't need to go super in depth, but who do you think won that trade?
Um, it's I want to apologize also to all the people watching. The reason I couldn't make it was because my good old friend he turned 21 about like 2.5 weeks ago, and we couldn't schedule a time to meet because of me finishing up school for this semester and him finishing up school this semester. So yesterday or Monday was like our first time together in like multiple weeks to celebrate his 21st. But going to the Aaron Rodgers situation, um, you know I think in a way, I want to say that Green Bay could have won the trade here, but also I could have said that the Jets could have won the trade too. I mean,
Those
I
are the
think
options.
I think that the Jets probably won out a little bit here.
Okay.
So
Well,
I don't think Green Bay did, just because you're losing Aaron Rodgers and a bunch of other picks. Plus, you know, the Jets gain a quarterback that has tenure and a lot of experience and stuff. Now Green Bay's left with hoping that Love actually produces. So I think the Jets won out here. I'm not going to go super in detail about it because I wasn't on the show, but yeah, it could have been the Packers, but a lot of people have said, oh, the Packers could have won the trade, but I don't really see a benefit in it. So I think the Jets won out here.
all right. So if you do want to see or hear more about that, though, me and Stan the Jet fan did talk about that trade the night that it happened. That video is over on our channel. No buts about it. You can go ahead and find it. There's a picture of Aaron Rodgers in a Jets uniform. Stan and me are the thumbnail. It's pretty easy to find. And we discuss, it's about 20 or so minutes long, about who won that trade. We both give our reasons for what we believe. So go check that out. You've probably guessed by now at this point, we're going to do one last first round mock draft. And this is Chuss's janky little website that he uses that I had to put onto a Word document, but
It's
we'll,
not janky. It's
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 janky.
NFL mock draft database, and at least I don't have to pay for a stupid subscription on PFFT Mock Simulator or whatever it is.
PFF isn't stupid. We love our friends over at PFF. Chuss
I
is
don't.
just
I,
happy that
I
I'm the one that pays for it.
Yeah, and I don't pay for it, and I didn't have to pay for it like 3 months ago, and then I now have to pay for it. So I'm using good old reliable here, NF user, our nfmockdraftdatabase.com, which isn't janky. I've used it in a lot of other draft mocks that we've done. So um, I actually used this for what would have been for the Cardinal Rule live stream that we did not too long ago, but I was not able to make it for that either. Just, I'm just a busy guy. So,
You
but
are.
yeah. So you
I'm
want me to
seeing if
get
seeing if I could find a pen, and I couldn't. But yeah, you are a busy guy. But let's see what you've got here. Who's this?
who's that?
Yeah, Mr. Bryce Young here. You got him going to the Carolina Panthers?
Yeah, it's the reason I picked Bryce Young to go to Carolina is just because I think he's the overall, probably him and CJ Stroud are probably the two best quarterbacks coming out of this draft here. And I feel like for Carolina to go for like Anthony Richardson or any other quarterback, I feel like it would be kind of foolish considering they have the option to get Bryce Young or Stroud. And I'll get in why I picked Stroud for Houston in a minute. But I'm kind of hoping that this happens the way that it will, just because I think Houston could really benefit a little bit from Stroud. But the reason I picked Bryce Young is just overall great quarterback. He's just did really solid over in Alabama. I just think that Carolina would be a fool to pick anybody else. Same with Houston with CJ Stroud going to pick number 2 here. It's two of the top best quarterbacks in the draft probably, and Will Levis and Anthony Richardson. I'm still really not high on Anthony Richardson and kind of looking more into Will Levis. I don't think he is as capable compared to Bryce Young and CJ Stroud. I think that there is the possibility, obviously, that Will Levis or Anthony Richardson do really well. But right now, I'm very sold on these two guys, and I think Houston would be really well off with CJ Stroud because of a pick that's coming up later, and I'll get into that in a little bit, because I think if they get Stroud, it could really help out a little bit with
I see what you're doing. I see what you're
yeah.
doing.
So third overall pick, I'm sticking with Will Anderson Jr., edge rusher for Alabama for the Arizona
And
Cardinals.
for the audio people, that's the Cardinals have the third overall pick.
Yeah, Cardinals have the third overall pick. I picked him in, I think, a mock draft about a month ago. I don't think I ever ended up talking about it too much on the show or anything, but I think Will Anderson will be a great edge rusher for Arizona. I think it'll really help on their defenses, their defense and whatnot. I think you could trade with that. I mean, I know Arizona could have used a lot more, help in some other areas, but I think, I didn't do any trades or anything. I just kind of went down as if no trades happened, which is not likely to happen, but we're just going to go with it as if nothing happens. So Will Anderson, I think, would be the best pick for Arizona in this case scenario. I think I'm going to just keep running with him. He's currently the favorite. Now, I picked for the Indianapolis Colts in the fourth overall pick. I picked the guy that I'm not very high on, but I think the Colts will pick him, being Anthony Richardson. I think that with Anthony Richardson, I think he is a little bit better than Will Levis in some aspects, and a lot of people are very high on him. I personally would have picked Will Levis for the Colts over Anthony Richardson. Sorry, I just
I'm
blanked for a
trying to
minute.
like
I
move your
don't know what you're.
draft around too.
Yeah, but Anthony Richardson, I think is, he's a solid quarterback, and or not the most solid quarterback. I kind of want to backtrack a little bit here. I definitely think he needs improvement, but I think for what Indianapolis is looking for, I think he would be a solid addition for them, and I think that they'll probably pass up on Will Levis at this point, and they need a quarterback that's probably potentially going to be the future. So if you develop Anthony Richardson over the next couple of years, like I'm hoping that a lot of these teams decide to do with these quarterbacks instead of having them just thrown right in, which I know Houston's probably going to throw Stroud right in, and Bryce Young probably get thrown right in for Carolina. But I think Anthony Richardson to Indianapolis probably would happen, because they still need a quarterback, and it doesn't look like Lamar's going to Indianapolis anymore, like we talked about on the show earlier.
It's gonna happen.
We'll see, but in the meantime, if nothing happens in the next week, they're probably going to stick with Anthony Richardson. So fifth overall, Seattle. I think they need some defensive line help. So I picked Jalen Carter. I know he has a lot of some over bad history that he's had with racing and whatnot, but I'm hoping that with. Do you know about that? I'm hoping.
I do. He got arrested for a DUI and killing two people, allegedly.
Allegedly. I thought it was racing. I didn't think it was.
He was racing and it resulted in a car crash which killed two people.
Yeah, but he
Allegedly.
wasn't directly, and he was involved, but he wasn't
He
the one
said he
that.
wasn't there when the people died, but he
Yeah.
wasn't. You made it sound like he's a bad like professional NASCAR driver or something. No, he
No, he's not. No. What? No. I don't watch NASCAR for one, but also for two, he has a lot of history, some bad history, a lot of alleged things happening and whatnot, and he had that whole incident. But I don't think it should plummet his draft stock too much, since it wasn't like a Henry Ruggs incident where, although it was DUI, all that crazy stuff, he wasn't the one driving 125 miles an hour and killing the person. He was just racing, and then he just kind of drove away. So I don't think he was the one that hit the car, but I don't think it should drop his stock that much. I think Jalen Carter will go to the Seattle Seahawks. So,
I'm not gonna say anything.
yeah, I don't. Okay, whatever. But I don't think it'll drop his stock too much. I don't. I mean, if it
I
does, I'll
agree with
be.
you there. I agree with you there. It's the way you're phrasing it.
Yeah, I mean, I just.
Okay, Jalen Carter, Seattle Seahawks. Who's up next?
Okay, so Devin Witherspoon for the Detroit Lions, sixth overall pick. I think he's a solid cornerback for Illinois, and I think he will be a great addition to the Detroit Lions backfield. And, he had some solid numbers in Illinois. I think he'd be great in Detroit. Same thing with Christian Gonzalez. On PFF, it had quarterback being the number one issue that the Raiders needed, but I disagree. I think that they're going to be able to run with Jimmy G. I don't think they're going to need to draft like a Will Levis or anything like that. Not right now, at least. So I think right now, focus a little bit on some cornerbacks and helping the defense out. I think a cornerback being Christian Gonzalez would be really good. I feel like either way, I think Christian Gonzalez could go to Detroit or Devin Witherspoon could go to Vegas. And I think either way, it's going to be a good cornerback for both teams. But right now, I have Christian Gonzalez in Vegas. And then for Atlanta, I have Tyree Wilson, edge for Texas Tech. Once again, very solid. And, Atlanta really needs that edge help. So I think that Atlanta will benefit from that. They're trying to figure out some of their quarterback and all the issues and all the things that they're having to deal with. But I think that they will benefit from an edge rusher. Chicago, I think, they need a tackle. I think Justin Fields has been running way too much. I think Chicago should pick up a little bit because I think Peter Skoronsky will be, I think he's ranked like 15 or 16 on this user mock draft database. So, they would be reaching a little bit, but I think, they could use a tackle. I picked Joey Porter Jr. to go to the Philadelphia Eagles 10th overall. Now, I know he's a favorite for the Steelers, but his stock's been going up a little bit recently. And I think that with the need for cornerbacks in a lot of these teams, I think that the Eagles are another team that would really benefit from having a cornerback, that being Joey Porter, because at this point, Joey Porter would probably be one of the best, if not the best cornerback for the 10th overall pick at that very time with, Christian Gonzalez and Devin Witherspoon, already getting picked. So I feel like Joey Porter would be the best option for the Eagles. They have a pick later on coming up too. So I think Joey Porter Jr. would be a solid pick because although the Steelers have a lot of bad, times picking cornerbacks, I don't think Joey Porter is that bad of a cornerback. I don't think he is, some generational talent, but I definitely think he would be a solid cornerback, especially for Philly. Now, Tennessee, I had the Titans picking Will Levis. So, and the reason I have that is because there's a lot of up in the air with Ryan Tannehill's future, in Tennessee. We really don't know what's going to happen over there. Malik Willis was not that guy. We saw him start 2 games. He did really bad the one, and I think they beat Houston, who that wasn't really, in my opinion, that big of an accomplishment just because Houston had been struggling all year. So I think that trying to get a young guy in that was drafted first overall and not first overall, but in the first round, rather than somebody in the second, third, or fourth that you're hoping will work out. I think Will Levis might be that guy if he's actually projected as high as he is. I hope that it works out for Tennessee getting Will Levis because he's not that bad. He's definitely probably up there with Anthony Richardson. He's no Stroud and he's no Young, but I definitely think he has potential. So I think Tennessee would benefit from him. Now with Houston, going to the 12th pick for Houston, I don't know if you noticed this or not, but in the second overall pick, CJ Stroud is a quarterback from Ohio State. Now Houston would be drafting Jackson Smith, wide receiver from Ohio State. And the reason that I had that is just because I think at that point, you're bringing in Stroud with a wide receiver that he's familiar with. Not only does Houston need a wide receiver, but I think that it would benefit a lot for them to have one of those connections like Burrow and Chase. You have Stroud. He's already a rookie. He's probably already going to start immediately. So might as well throw him in there with a wide receiver he knows. Lucas Van Ness, edge Iowa for Green Bay in the 13th overall pick. Once again, Green Bay at this point in time probably could benefit from a quarterback, but with all the quarterbacks going earlier in the rounds, they're going to have to probably stick to defense. I'm picking an edge for for Green Bay, being Lucas Van Ness. I think he's a solid edge. I think he'll be really good for Green Bay. Hopefully, they're able to rebuild rather quickly so that he doesn't leave, just like Chase Young having his 5th-year option declined in Washington, which I don't know if you heard that or not, but that just came up earlier today.
So we're going to talk about that a little later.
Yeah, so Patriots 14th overall, Paris Johnson Jr. definitely could use a tackle over in New England. Don't want to stick too much long on this, but Ohio State, Paris Johnson Jr. definitely a solid tackle. Definitely think it could help the Patriots. Same thing with Broderick Jones, offensive tackle for Georgia, very similar to the cornerback situation. Both of those I feel like could be universal. Either team could go and pick either one of those tackles. But I don't know how Stan would feel about it, but I definitely think they could definitely use a tackle specifically just to help out that, offensive line and help whatever quarterback that they decide to run, which would probably be at this point Aaron Rodgers. But with how the Jets carousel quarterbacks have done over the last couple of months, I don't really know. So we'll see how it goes. Hopefully Aaron Rodgers starts in there, but I wouldn't be surprised if week 8 they're like, we're going to put in Zach Wilson for fun. So, but we'll see what happens over there. So anyway, 16th overall pick, Washington Commanders.
I think Stan would throw something.
Bijan Robinson for the Commanders. I could have gone a couple different ways, but at this point I had Robinson still available, and with all the running back issues that the Commanders could have had, or that they had last year, I think that Robinson might be a pretty solid one, considering they had that whole shooting issue and all those other issues with their running backs and whatnot. I think
he got shot.
It wasn't shooting. He got shot.
Know.
Yeah, shooting issues because he got shot.
Again, we got to tell the whole story, though. He got shot and then recovered quickly. He did not shoot anyone. Brian Robinson.
Yes.
So, for those who don't know, because this is supposed to help beginner football fans as well. So
okay, fair. Okay, but yes, yeah, he got shot. I felt like if I said that pretty bluntly, I feel like you would have laughed. So I figured I would try to kind of narrow it. But yeah, I think a running back would be beneficial.
I ain't trying to catch a lawsuit.
Okay, well, we're not
defamation.
It's not defamation. It's
Brett Favre might be listening.
Whatever, Brett Favre. Anyway, Deontay Banks, cornerback for the Steelers. I don't like when the Steelers draft cornerbacks first round, just because we've had some bad luck with cornerbacks in the past in the first round. But I think Deontay Banks hopefully will break the cornerback curse here. I think he's a solid cornerback for Maryland. I really can't see the Steelers going for any other type of pick, maybe other than Branch, safety for Alabama, which would help them. But I think they could also wait and maybe get one of the other safeties in the second, third, or fourth rounds. So just kind of leaving it at Deontay Banks, because I definitely think that's what they're going to go with. Lions, Nolan Smith, edge out of Georgia. Definitely think they could use, just some beefing up on the defense. I think they have a pretty overall solid team, but adding a really good edge rusher like Nolan Smith, I think is just going to just put them in a 10-7 type position for this coming season. So let's hope for the best for those Detroit Lions. Am I right?
Right. Just
yeah.
Alvarado.
Yeah, that's So, and then Tampa Bay, Darnell Wright, offensive tackle, Tennessee. Definitely think Tampa Bay could use a lot of help on literally anything, but I think one of the first things that they should, decide to start building is their offensive line for whatever quarterback that they run with, which will probably end up being Baker Mayfield, I would assume. Yep. I think that just building that tackle line will just really help out Baker and just the team in general. And the 20th overall, Miles Murphy, edge, Clemson. Once again, Seattle definitely could just use some beef up on some defense, but I think they definitely have potential if Geno Smith just continues rolling. But if the team is in the same place that they will be next year, and they just add an edge to it, it might just be a difference maker for them. Chargers 21st overall, I picked Michael Mayer, tight end out of Notre Dame. I know that they said that they really needed a wide receiver at one point, but I kind of stuck away from the wide receivers because they do still have some pretty solid wide receivers. Keenan Allen's getting older, yes, but they still have Williams, and they still have definitely some people that they could, benefit from. They still have Austin Eckler, and they still have some decent players. So, but I think
Eckler becomes a Bengal.
Theoretically speaking for you, maybe, but I think the tight end would definitely be beneficial for them in this situation, just because at that point they'll still have some decent wide receivers. If they keep Austin Eckler and they add, Mayer as a tight end in the 21st overall, I think it could help. But hey, nothing's happened yet. This is all hypothetical. Now, this will break my heart when it happens, but if it happens, the Baltimore Ravens select Jordan Addison, wide receiver out of USC, in the 22nd overall pick. I think that the wide receivers are needed in Baltimore with Lamar and all of that situation. Granted, I know Lamar wants what he wants, and right now they got Odell, and they wanted else did they want? He wanted somebody else. He wanted Odell, or wasn't there? D-Hop, yeah. So I don't think they're going to get D-Hop, but in the event that they do, this pick probably would go into oblivion, but more than likely they wouldn't. They're probably going to go younger, but who better to go with than Jordan Addison, who is projected to be a very top wide receiver coming out of this draft. So I think Jordan Addison would end up going to Baltimore. He falls a little further down the list than a lot of people are projecting him between 10 and 20, but I've had him 22 just because there's a lot of other team needs in this draft. Going into Minnesota in the 23rd overall pick, Quentin Johnson, wide receiver, TCU. TCU had a great year this year. Granted, they got blown out in the national championship, but nonetheless, they still had a great year. Quentin Johnson really performed well, and I think the Vikings could really benefit from adding another pretty solid wide receiver to their core, considering some of their wide receivers are getting a little older and just all different types of things. So I think Quentin Johnson would be very cool to see. Plus, he wouldn't have to change colors. He would be purple going to purple. So that's kind of fun too. So Brian Branch, safety for Jacksonville. I think it would just help for Jacksonville to add another safety to their backfield. I think once again he could have gotten drafted by the Steelers, but I think if the Steelers decide to go with a cornerback over the safety, it'll end up being Brian Branch going to Jacksonville just because there's a lot of other teams that need other types of picks. And I just think Brian Branch might be one of those sleeper picks that fall a little bit and then end up really benefiting a Jacksonville team that already is showing promise. So, very high on the Alabama safeties this coming year. I've already talked very highly on Jordan Battle. I'm also very high on Brian Branch. So I've definitely watched a lot more of his film to be a little bit more higher on him. So definitely a good pick for Jacksonville there. Giants, Zay Flowers, wide receiver, Boston College. I've seen him play, because he's in the ACC and I'm a big Pitt fan. So seeing him play is very fun to watch. I think he is a pretty solid wide receiver, definitely deserves to be a late round first rounder. And I think, 25th overall Giants picking Zay Flowers would just benefit Daniel Jones, hopefully, just because the Giants are very, we don't know kind of situation with their issues with wide receivers. Daniel Jones being hit or miss, just there's a whole thing going over there in the Giants. But I think if Danny Dimes continues to be throwing dimes, I think he could be throwing some Danny Dimes to Zay Flowers. So, but we'll see what ends up happening. 26th overall, Dallas Cowboys, Dalton Kincaid, tight end from Utah. Just think that would help a lot out for, Dallas. I think there's a lot of, room for improvement in Dallas. I think that they have a very solid team, but they're constantly moving around their offense and defense. I think throwing a really solid tight end in there with Dalton Kincaid from Utah, I think that would just really put them potentially over into that, at least into the NFC Championship, if not more, just because they were so close, very close in that divisional round, but they just came up just a tad short. I'm not saying that would have changed anything if they would have had a different tight end, but it might have made a difference because it was very heartbreaking for those Dallas Cowboy fans.
Don't badmouth Schulte on my show.
But wasn't he the one that stepped out of bounds and then made the play?
Yeah, but I like Schulte.
I don't get me wrong. I don't mind Schultz, but listen, could there be a better Dalton coming in?
No.
We'll see. Okay. Next up, Osiris Torrance, offensive line, Florida, 27, Buffalo. I think they could just use some help so that Josh Allen just stops scrambling because he put a quote that he can't scramble forever. And as you know, Josh Allen is getting older, and if he scrambles anymore, he might shatter his leg, just like we think that Lamar is going to. So, I'm sorry, I just had to throw that in there. So I think a lineman would help a lot for Buffalo. So 27th overall going to Buffalo, and granted they could use a lot of other help in some other areas, just some tweaking. Definitely don't think that you want to sleep on them because eventually maybe Buffalo will win some sort of Super Bowl, but we'll see. For your Bengals as the 28th overall pick, as you're pointing to your hat all excitedly, because I know you're very excited to see what I picked for the Bengals. I picked 28th overall Emmanuel Forbes, cornerback from Mississippi State. I
like that pick.
Yeah, I mean, I think you guys have a solid team on, just overall, but I think just adding a cornerback just to help out, on those wide receiver coverages and different things like that. I mean, obviously the North is trying to gain a lot more wide receivers, just trying to get help in just all different aspects. So I think Emmanuel Forbes, to help cover George Pickens or, Zay Flowers or any of these guys that are coming in, for any of these AFC North, you got to play them twice. plus any of the other teams that you got to play over the course of your schedule. I think Emmanuel Forbes will be a solid addition. I'm glad you like that pick. Saints draft Kalijah Cansey, defensive lineman from Pitt. I'm very high on Kalijah Cansey. Watched him at Pitt. Definitely think he's a solid addition to the New Orleans Saints defensive line. It'll be a matter of time if we see him in New Orleans, but for the time being, I think it would be a solid pick to add for the Saints, who are kind of up and down, I guess, more or less. So Jahmyr Gibbs, running back, Alabama. I think the Eagles, one of the most weakest things on their offense, I feel like a lot of times ends up being their just random running backs that they have back there. I feel like a lot of teams kind of symbolize a running back with certain teams. I feel like the Eagles have always been that one team that always just kind of had just random running backs here and there. And that's not a bad thing because it worked for them in 2018, I believe, when they won the Super Bowl. It was 2017, 2018 was right around there. And I think it was solid for them. It worked out. But I mean, a lot of these other teams, like you think of the Titans, you think of Derrick Henry, you think of Aaron Jones in Green Bay, you think of Dalvin Cook in Minnesota. I think that, Gibbs has all the potential to be that guy when you think of the Eagles. So we'll wait and see, but you never know.
Derrick Henry might be going to the Eagles too. That's a
As
possibility.
I did research it though, they said that nobody called. So that's why I also picked that pick too,
Okay.
because right now
I didn't know that.
Philadelphia, yeah, the GM said that nobody has called about the GM for Tennessee has said nobody has called about Derrick Henry, not the Eagles, not anyone. So granted,
Interesting.
that could be a lie to cover it up because you never know. You really don't know because we're not insiders, we're not the GMs. We don't really know what's going on behind closed doors. But if that's the case scenario, then Gibbs would be a good pick. But if Derrick Henry does go there in the next day or something, by like tomorrow, I guess, then they might not have to draft a running back. But for now, we'll stick with it. Anton Harrison, offensive tackle, hopefully replaces in some sort of aspect Orlando Brown. But for now, we'll just see what happens there for the Kansas City Chiefs. And but I think Anton Harrison will be good. And then last but not least, to help the Steelers out in the 32nd overall pick, Brian Breesy, defensive lineman, Clemson. I think he's going to be a solid pick. I wish it would have been Kalijah Cansey, but Kalijah Cansey gets snagged up by New Orleans. But I think the Steelers will be really good with Brian Brees. I think Clemson, showed a lot this year, and I think the defense did really a lot better than they did in 2021 when Kenny Pickett was there. So I think that Brian is going to be a very good pick, and I think the Steelers will benefit from him greatly. So I tried to make that as quick as I possibly could, but since there's 32 picks, it's very hard to elaborate further on a lot of these picks. But I did my best. I know it's already at 27 minutes, but we're hoping that, this episode might have to be cut into two parts.
No. Josh is gonna do a speed run here. I
Okay.
used the All Superior PFF. So first overall, we've got Bryce Young out of Alabama. He was supposed to go and visit a bunch of other teams, but then guess what happened? He canceled them after visiting with the Carolina Panthers. Almost like they said, "Okay, you're our guy. Don't even worry about it." So I'm going Bryce Young to Carolina. And they've got Andy Dalton right now, so they're probably gonna maybe let Andy play a couple games while Bryce gets used to the NFL life. Then second overall, Will Anderson Jr. I think CJ Stroud slips a little bit. I've been seeing a lot of CJ Stroud falling even further than what I've got him, but Willie Anderson Jr., Edge, Alabama. So two Alabama boys in a row. Then Peter Skarinsky, I have going third overall after the Cardinals traded back. I think that Silver Wolf is gonna like what I did. He can't see it, but I have like the entire second and third round. I traded back 3 times with the Cardinals. So, Silver Wolf, if you watch this video in the comments, let me know how you feel about having like 12 second and third round picks. But Peter Skarinsky, tackle for the Raiders to protect Jimmy G since he's had some injury issues. Then Colts are going to take quarterback CJ Stroud, solve that issue in case Lamar Jackson doesn't go there. Number 5, Seattle. I hate it. I don't think it should happen. I think he should fall further than this, but I don't think he will fall further than that. Uh, Jalen Carter. I don't think this is a good pick, but it's what I think will probably happen. Number 6, Dalton Kincaid. This was they got this from the Matthew Stafford trade, I believe. This pick, and he's going to be the TJ Hawkinson replacement, Dalton Kincaid, because he can't really block, but he can receive like crazy. And so Dalton Kincaid, he's going to the Lions in my pick. Then Chuss's favorite boy, Anthony Richardson, 7th overall pick to the Titans. He is going to be going to Tennessee because I think they want a mobile quarterback. I think that's what they were hoping Malik Willis could be. He wasn't that, and now they've got a chance with Anthony Richardson. They've kind of said, "Hey, we've given up on Malik. Malik sucks." I could have told you that a year ago. I did tell you that a year ago, and that's where we're at now. We've got Anthony Richardson. Bijan Robinson, I've got him going 8th overall just because, dude's a stud, dude's a tank. I think the Falcons need a running back, especially with Cordell Patterson doing like everything else. So getting Bijan in the backfield will definitely be helpful. Chicago Bears, I've got them drafting cornerback Devin Witherspoon, who, by the way, is an absolute menace. I've seen a couple places where they've got him going in the top 3. He fell to 9 on my draft, and that's okay. This would be a fun matchup here. Jackson Smith Njigba going 10th overall to the Eagles. Imagine that. A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Jackson Smith Njigba matchup. I don't know how to say his last name. I'm
That
probably saying it.
yeah,
If
I
I
that's
say it
why I
wrong,
just that's why I just said when it came up, I just said Jackson Smith
oh,
because I just
well,
didn't know.
I'm
I
sorry if
didn't
I
want to.
mispronounced it,
I
Jackson,
didn't want
but
to
we've
bunch
got
it.
now finally we've got the Arizona Cardinals pick 11th overall. They're taking Christian Gonzalez, who is a stud, as you mentioned before, at the cornerback position. And finally, I do not understand this, but I've seen Will Levis going 1st overall in a couple mock drafts. I don't see it. I've seen more reports of scouts who have said, hey, this guy, his personality sucks. We've interviewed with him. We don't want him. And
His
so
personality sucks.
his
Dang,
personality sucks.
they're basing that off of personality alone and not skill.
There's I think that means like maturity possibly, but
Oh,
I've
well,
got
Mac,
him
he's a young guy.
falling.
He's
I've
younger.
got him falling because of it. He's still going to end up at the Texans. So Texans are still going to end up getting their quarterback, but may not be necessarily who they expect. Then one of your boys, Brian Branch, he's going over to Green Bay with one of the picks that they got for the Aaron Rodgers trade. I believe you also had Paris Johnson Jr. going to the New England Patriots at the tackle position, 14th overall, which is where I've got him as well.
I believe I did, but let me pull it back up because I closed it by accident. But yeah,
I'm pretty
keep
sure
going.
15th overall, the Jets are going to take Broderick Jones, tackle, who you may have also had as well. So
Yeah, I had Paris Johnson, 14th Patriots, 15th is Broderick Jones. Yep.
dang, we're good. Wide receiver Jordan Addison, did we have that as well? Did we?
No, I had Jordan Addison.
Okay,
Wait, where
that's
did you
right.
have him for the
I
Giants?
16th.
Yeah, no, I had wait, no. I had him going later to Baltimore.
Okay. Well, I've got him going 16th up to New York. I gave you Joey Porter Jr. just because he's been linked to the Steelers like forever because of his dad. If he falls that far, they are going to grab him. Michael Mayer, another tight end, because you know what? I like tight ends. I like the Lions
So you think the Lions should draft 2 tight ends in the first round?
because, well, I'm going to
I
be
mean,
honest.
I'm not saying that's bad. I'm just saying
I'm pretty
that's
sure I messed
very
this up.
interesting.
I'm pretty sure I
Okay.
messed this up, but damn it, I'm gonna defend it. So
Okay. Go ahead
here's
and
what's gonna
defend your
happen.
two first round.
They're gonna draft Dalton Kincaid because everyone thinks he's a hot shot. But you know what? I know deep down Michael Mayer is the better player. So that's why I have Michael Mayer going over here, 18th overall. And maybe Dalton can be a extra offensive lineman or something. Maybe he'll learn how to block. But that's what's gonna happen for some reason. 2 tight ends in the first round. Lions are taking both of them.
Okay. Cool.
Kalijah Cansey over to Tampa Bay. They're going to start rebuilding that defense that was such a big part of their success in the Super Bowl. Now that they've lost a bunch of guys to free agency, um, Nolan Smith, another defensive player going to Seattle. Why not? They've got Jalen Carter already, so why not have another Georgia boy? Deontay Banks, cornerback, Chargers, easy money. I should mention I don't watch college football, so I know very little about most of these guys, but I've read about a little bit on all of them, and so that's why I'm kind of just plugging some of these guys in. Miles Murphy, edge to the Ravens. Emmanuel Forbes, he's a guy I do like. I would be okay with the Bengals taking him, but I think he'll go to the Vikings. Darnell Wright, he's a guy who one of the Bengals super fans actually got into an argument with, and then they made up. Like I thought he showed a lot of maturity, so now I really like him. Darnell Wright, tackle, got to protect Trevor Lawrence there at the Jaguars. Quentin Johnson, wide receiver, another wide receiver for the New York Giants. They need help there. That one wasn't on that one wasn't on accident. That one was on purpose.
What, Quentin Johnson?
Having them draft 2 wide receivers in the first round.
No, I don't think that's a bad idea considering
they
just
need help there. But Tyree Wilson, edge, going over to the Cowboys. I was surprised he fell this far, but that could be because of I was the one doing the draft. But he fell this far, so he's going to the Cowboys. Anton Harrison, same thought process as you, defending Josh Allen. DeJuan Jones, 28th overall. We're defending Joe Burrow. Osiris Torrance, I believe you had him going to the Saints. Or
I had Kalijah Kancey. I had Kalijah Kancey falling a lot further than
Kalijah
19.
Kancey was to the Saints. That's right.
Yeah.
John Michael Schmitz, that's Joe Comeau's favorite guy for the Cardinals, but he's going to end up going to the Eagles. Yes, I know they have Jason Kelsey, but Jason Kelsey's getting old. Might as well start developing a guy while you still got Jason at such an important position. And 31st overall, the Kansas City Chiefs are going to draft an edge, Lucas Van Ness, because it wouldn't let me trade the way that I wanted to trade, but that's what happened. And I don't think most of that will happen, to be honest, because here's why. The NFL draft never does what anyone expects it to do.
No, absolutely not.
Mel Kiper has been doing this for years, and he never gets it right. So I'm going to be okay with being wrong. And if someone in the comments wants to yell at me for being wrong, that's fine too. If you want to be wrong with me, send us your mock draft and we'll post it.
And in the meantime, you just got to get excited because you're hopefully going to have at least one pick, right? Which hopefully will be Bryce Young to the Carolina Panthers. But probably what's going to end up happening is Carolina's just going to be like, you know what, Bryce Young, screw you. We lied to you. We're actually going to go with Will Levis. And everyone's going to be like, what the heck is Carolina even thinking? And but that's just how the draft works.
Well,
now,
apparently
I'm not
Will
against
Levis was telling family members that he was being drafted by the Panthers. So we'll see what happens.
I guess Anthony Richardson and Stroud must have been telling their brothers and sisters and cousins too that they've been drafted by the Carolina Panthers too, because I guess everybody's going to Carolina at this point.
Carolina's getting all of the quarterbacks. Anyway, let's move on to some exciting news for me.
For you, yeah.
For me, not for you. For me.
It's very.
And that is that Joseph Lee Burrow has not been extended. They have decided to take his 5th-year option for 2024, which means negotiations are ongoing. I think Monday is going to be the deadline for taking the 5th-year option, so they just took it just in case. It also allows us to spread the cap, or us being the Cincinnati Bengals, to spread the cap out a little bit more, make sure we can really get those contracts going for our big boys like T. Higgins, Jamar Chase. And they didn't take T. Higgins. T. Higgins is a second rounder, so he doesn't have a 5th-year option. But I'm expecting an extension pretty soon with that boy. The other guy who was taken, they took his 5th-year option, was Justin Jefferson. So kind of the same thing going on there. Star player, hoping to build around him up in Minnesota. But for now, we're going to keep him on the rookie contract for an extra year. You mentioned earlier Chase Young. They did not take his 5th-year option. Now all of a sudden Bengals fans are like, he's coming to here. That's one where I'm like, we do not need him. We do not need Mr. Chase Young because he gets injured all the time, and it doesn't seem worth it to me. But what do you think about those three? What would you have done differently? Would you have taken their fifth year option? Would you have just extended them?
Well, honestly, I think everything has been solid. I think Joe Burrow getting is, you know, excuse me, sorry, getting his 5th year option instead of worrying about the extension and whatnot. I think that's smart on the Bengals. I think that, the uncertainty going into, regardless of the draft and just, free agency and having all this happening all at once and whatnot. I think it was smart for Cincinnati to go with that 5th year option. Same thing with Minnesota. I mean, I kind of figured Minnesota would go with the 5th year option, and deep down, I kind of expected Joe Burrow to get his 5th year option. I'm not gonna lie to you, Josh, I didn't think he was gonna get extended. I really thought it was gonna be a 5th year option. And same thing with Minnesota. I thought it was going to be a 5th year option. I really doubted that they would try to extend them way too quickly on. Granted, do I think that Joe Burrow probably could have gotten an extension? Yes. Do I think Justin Jefferson could have gotten an extension? Maybe. And I only say that just because he's a stud wide receiver, but wide receivers are interchangeable and they can be almost easily replaced. Now, I'm not saying Justin Jefferson is easily replaced, but like, for example, if he gets hurt, this season, they could actually take a step back and really consider, will we re-sign him for as much money as we were going to give him type deal. Whereas Joe Burrow, quarterback, he has been a stud and he's been solid. So, you're going to have to extend him at some point, but right now, instead of trying to budge extension deals and all that, just wait. So I think both teams did it good, but I think they both did it for different reasons. I think Washington picking not to take the 5th year option for Chase Young is huge. And the reason I say that is just because I think, Chase Young had a lot of potential, but like you said, he's so injury prone and he's probably going to end up as a future player somewhere else just because I just don't see Washington really trying all that hard to even attempt to re-sign him. So I just think that I think Washington's in a weird mode right now, trying to, trading owners and changing all of these things and talking about a potential new arena or new stadium, I should say. I think there's a lot of up in the air with Washington right now. And I think that, trying to just rebuild a team, around whatever quarterback they decide to go with, because they have a carousel kind of going on over there too. I think that Washington going without Chase Young, I don't think it would be that big of a deal. Now, if somebody was like, "Oh yeah, Chase Young is like a TJ Watt equivalent, and he was a stud over the last couple of years." Don't get me wrong, Chase Young has been really good when he's been healthy, but if he would have been like a TJ Watt, I would have been like, "Ooh, not taking that 5th year option is big, especially if you're not trying for an extension." But just declining it altogether, I just honestly for a Chase Young situation, yeah, I think all 3 teams did it right. I think all 3 teams did it right.
I think so too. I'm surprised he didn't have any toxicity. That was actually pretty nice there. I kind of threw you a bone for toxicity, and you said you were really nice during that. I'm proud of you. You're growing.
I'm growing.
I think. Yeah.
Thank you, thank
Yep.
you.
You get the claps, and I hit
Hey,
the right button.
I will say I wasn't that toxic during the draft board either. I mean, a
Eh,
little bit. I threw some shots at Lamar and some other people, but also I'm sick of talking about Lamar so much that he just makes me mad.
Bro,
But
Lamar Jackson is the greatest quarterback to ever play in the
it's
NFL
just
ever.
all we've talked about for like 2 months because he's just so fair weather with what he wants to do. So I just get really annoyed with him. Whereas these 3 players, Justin Jefferson, Joe Burrow, and Chase Young, I just feel like they're just, Joe Burrow's doing what he's got to be doing. Justin Jefferson's been doing what he's got to be doing, and same with Chase Young. He's just been hurt and just trying to get better. So I think all 3 players have just been kind of benefiting themselves. So I don't really see a reason to be mad at them at all because I feel like this is the first time I've brought up Justin Jefferson at all during the show. I feel like I barely brought him up at all. Same thing with Chase Young. Joe Burrow, we've talked about so much.
Yeah.
So, I mean, but, so no reason to be mad. No reason to be toxic. So,
Good job. Good job. Okay. Well, thank you for listening to today's show. If you enjoyed, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. We can be found anywhere you listen to podcasts and on YouTube at No Butts Show. Our social media pages are NoButts_show on Instagram and No Butts Show on TikTok. My Twitter is Josh_Butts_2001. And if you would like to reach us, you can email us at bullmoosepodcast2, that's the number 2, at gmail.com. Finally, our spread shop will be in the description, so check out the merch. Once again, if you enjoyed today's show, like, comment, and subscribe. Until next time, go do something nice for somebody.